Hey there, you're listening to Mat Chats with Black Girl, White Gi. I'm your host, Jess D, and today is a blog post episode. These episodes are dedicated to those who hate reading, I get it, or those of you who don't have time to read. If you'd like to refer to this blog post, the link will be in the episode description. Or you can go directly to blackgirlwhitegi.com and the episode title will correspond with the title of the blog post. So, here goes. Today's episode is entitled, Why Some Women Who Train BJJ Don't Like Rolling with Men. Here are some reasons why women don't train or roll with men during jiu-jitsu classes. Nowadays, women are killing it in BJJ. I remember the days where I was the only girl on the mat to a time now where the women sometimes outnumber the men in a jiu-jitsu class. I am always very happy to see more women choosing to try BJJ. When it comes to a sport that requires you to be in such close contact with your training partners, it can get quite uncomfortable, especially for women who are new to the sport. I remember my first class where the owner of the gym told me to get on top of him before I knew what mount was, and how I went completely nuts in my own mind thinking about what this man's wife would say or think if she saw me on top of him. Of course, I'm a long way from that first class, but I can understand the sentiments that go through a woman's mind when you first need to get close to someone. Cue the uncomfortable giggling. Women both new and familiar with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu have their reasoning for not rolling with men. But here are the instances I've heard of when I've talked to my women Jiu-Jitsu friends about why they specifically choose not to roll with men. Number 1, BJJ with guys can be gross, smelly, and sweaty. In my experience, men tend to sweat more in the gym. Also, depending on the dude, they might be smelly. There are some instances that I specifically have been in where guys don't wear rash guards and their chest hair might hold sweat and drip on you. I think women tend to be more cautious about smells and odors because no one wants to be the smelly chick. To me, it goes with the overall idea of femininity. So, if you're a woman who is overly concerned about some big, sweaty, smelly dude being on top of you, potentially dripping sweat into your mouth, again, speaking from experience here, you're going to be like, ugh, no thanks. I'm going to roll with someone who I know doesn't sweat that much and smells nice. I've talked to one of my best friends, Anna, who I have brought to many a BJJ class, about this, and this was her main concern. And cutting her nails. She was out when I said her nails had to be short. She has seen how I've rolled with dudes and how I sweat and how the other dudes sweat. I can understand how that could be a deterring factor for someone new to the sport of BJJ. Number 2, men can hurt you during BJJ sparring. As much as I am an advocate of women being able to do just as much and maybe even more than men can, the reality is that men are generally bigger and carry more muscle mass than women. Of course, when you're more comfortable with your partners and your partners know how to roll with people of all sizes, the idea of them hurting you is far from your mind. But sometimes, when it's an intense roll or someone is moving too fast or is too strong, people get hurt. This fear is all too real for beginners in BJJ. If you see some guy who is maybe 45 to 80 pounds or 20 to 40 kg bigger than you hurt someone, you're most likely going to avoid them. Add double the fear if you see a woman who has been training longer than you, i.e., any upper belt, get hurt by a guy. To avoid the risk altogether, these women will deny rolling with any man. Number 3, their significant other has a problem with it. I would like to think that most people know there's nothing sexual about jiu-jitsu despite the close contact between people. But for people who don't know about it, some of it looks crazy. For the guys I've dealt with who don't understand BJJ, I've gotten snide sexual comments such as, "Wow, I wish I was on the bottom of you in that video," when I show them or tell them about jiu-jitsu. I usually follow these comments up with an eye roll and the comfort of knowing that I can choke the heck out of them. I'm sure for any guy who doesn't really understand what BJJ is, will feel uncomfortable with their girl being under or on top of some dude. Also, if the guy does understand BJJ, maybe it goes back to my previous point of them not wanting their girlfriends or wives getting hurt by another guy. In most cases of my female training partners and teammates, their boyfriends and husbands understand their love for the sport and trust them completely. But for some guys, it takes a bit longer to get that trust. To keep a happy home and a healthy relationship, some women will just avoid men in the gym. Also, it might be a happy medium between them being able to train when some men don't even want their significant other to train in the first place. Number 4, some men make stuff uncomfortable / make sexual comments on and off the mats. Going back to my original comment of men making sexual comments about me doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think I know how to deal with these kind of men because I've been doing it for so long. Also, when it comes to my guy friends who make jokes, it's always been in a context where we understand each other's humor and we've built a rapport where I know they're not being inappropriate to me. Unfortunately, there are some dudes that don't know how to act around women, and they make comments or do or say things that might not make a woman feel comfortable at the gym. Going beyond that, there has been instances of sexual harassment and assault in the jiu-jitsu world that has come to light in recent years. I always refer to that creepy older man I dealt with back in my early days of training. I think that if I didn't have such a supportive community of dudes and great coaches that made me feel protected, I would have thought that most of the dudes in BJJ were like that and would have probably quit. Some women aren't as lucky to have this type of community or another gym in their area they can go to, but they have a passion for jiu-jitsu and a goal within the sport. So they just have to keep training. Just to stay safe, they decide to just roll with the women who are available at their gym. Comfort and safety for everyone. When it comes down to it, everyone should feel safe and comfortable in their gym. Although my belief is that everyone should roll with everyone despite being big or small, a competitive athlete or BJJ hobbyist, man or woman. If you're serious about BJJ, this is one of the ways you can expand your knowledge of the sport. But of course, when it comes to being comfortable in a place that most people choose as their sacred space, they want to create an environment that will help it stay that way. When it comes to women in a sport that is mostly male-dominated, we will do what we can to make it stay safe, which may include avoiding training and sparring with men. Although I have been lucky to mostly feel comfortable in an environment where I will train with everyone, I understand why some women don't train with dudes. For any women listening to this, do you choose not to roll with men? Why is that? We can discuss more on my Instagram at blackgirlwhitegi_BJJ. Thank you so much for listening to this blog post episode of Nat Chats with Black Girl White Gi. Remember, this post is available on blackgirlwhitegi.com in written form, so you can get any links or anything you might have missed while listening. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and rate this podcast. It's much appreciated. Again, I'm your host, Jess D, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!